Madeline McCann, dramatic new developments.
We've been made aware of 3 further cases following the appeal on Crimewatch.
The elderly targeted by muggers and thieves.
Is that okay if I borrow your toilet, please?
Yeah. And Claudia Lawrence, could this exclusive new CCTV solve the mystery of her disappearance? Catching the criminals, protecting the public. This is Crimewatch. Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We are live for the next hour with this month's latest crime investigations, news and appeals. With 40 detectives here in the studio and millions of you at home, it's our chance to fight back and to solve crime. Cases needing your help tonight include the man working round the clock to save up for his wedding, murdered just before Christmas.
I was hoping it wasn't him. I was really hoping it wasn't him. I just kept thinking, you know, while I was asleep, he was laid on the field.
And I'll have my latest collection of faces, people wanted for murder, robbery and kidnap. And some shocking CCTV of a man who lost a pool game, lost a £4 bet, then lost the plot.
But we begin with fresh and apparently very significant new leads in the Madeline McCann case. Leads that were strengthened following our major appeal in October's programme. I'm going to be speaking live to the senior detective in charge in just a moment. But first, Matthew takes a look at the latest developments.
Madeline McCann vanished from her holiday apartment in Praia da Luz in Portugal nearly 7 years ago. In October, in the biggest appeal ever featured on Crimewatch, you were asked to help finally solve the mystery of what happened to the 3-year-old. Her parents, Kate and Jerry, were in the studio talking to Kirsty.
It doesn't matter how much heartache we put ourselves through, so long as, you know, we get the result that we need.
The Metropolitan Police's lead detective in the investigation exclusively revealed what they'd uncovered.
It was a revelation moment.
And we reconstructed events leading up to the discovery that Madeline was missing.
See your detectives right now doing
More than 3,000 people called, texted and emailed with information.
Since then, detectives have been meticulously working their way through that evidence. I'm back at the incident room in London to take a look at the latest developments in the case.
So Matthew, as you know, this is the incident room where...
Tim Dobson is the detective inspector on the investigation.
Not only did the UK public respond, but we had calls from France, Germany, Holland, Spain and Portugal itself. And these officers have to cross-reference and index all that material to extract what's important and make sure that the officers concentrate on those main lines of inquiry.
This careful analysis has led to an important discovery.
Today, detectives can reveal that in the years shortly before and after Madeline went missing, there were 12 crimes against British families on holiday in the Western Algarve. And significantly, the similarities are striking. Could these cases be linked to Madeline's disappearance?
We're looking at 12 crimes when an intruder has broken into the properties of UK families whilst on holiday in the Western Algarve. And significantly, on 4 of those occasions, he sexually assaulted a young white female child whilst in her bed. Several of these offences were reported to the Portuguese police, but most recently we've been made aware of 3 further cases following the appeal on Crimewatch, and one specifically phoned in to the programme after your broadcast.
The circumstances, you must have been instantly struck by the similarities with Madeline McCann.
Yes, there are certain similarities. A young white child in bed, and a holiday apartment on the Western Algarve out of season. There's no forced entry in most of these crimes. And similarly, there's no property stolen, or very little property stolen in all 12.
Tell me more about what the girls, the families, have said about the intruder.
They described him as a dark-tanned male. Particularly, he remained calm and may have spent some time in the apartment beforehand. And he spoke in English, quite good English, but with a foreign accent.
Could this be the person that took Madeline McCann?
It could be, but we don't know. And that's why we're appealing to the public. If you are a victim of crime on the Western Algarve in similar circumstances, we need to speak to you.
No one knows where these latest revelations will take the investigation. But what is clear is that your calls really do count in the continuing search for Madeline.
Now, I should just tell you that some of these young victims' families not only came forward following the Crimewatch appeal in October and the previous cases, they hadn't received attention because they had been thought just too remote from prior deluge. On reviewing that evidence, that decision has been revised. So I'm joined now in the studio by DCI Andy Redwood, who, as you will know, of course, is in charge of this big investigation. 12 crimes, 12 more sets of victims. Could this be the man that was responsible for Madeline's disappearance, do you think?
Well, it could be, Kirsty, but I should say that these crimes are linked not scientifically, but we believe that there are sufficient significant features amongst them that lead us to believe that the same man is responsible.
Okay. Can you take me through the details then of these 12 separate incidents?
Yes, I mean, these offences take place between 2004 and 2010, where a man has entered holiday villas. 9 out of the 12 occasions, there's no forced entry and there's no burglary once he's inside. The offences cluster around the Carvoeiro area here, which is about 40 kilometres to the east of Pradaluz, and then Valdeparra, where there's another 6 offences, which is about another 20 kilometres further east. Now, we know that this man has entered the properties, as I say, between 2 and 5 in the morning. His interest is in young children. He has been going into the bedrooms of young girls, and we know that he's, as I say, on 6 of those cases has either sat on or got into the bed of those young children. In 4 of the cases, he has committed a sexual assault against the child, and these girls are in the age range between 7 and 10 years of age.
It's appalling to listen to the details of that. What about a description of this guy, what he was wearing and so on? What do you know?
Well, we know that he spoke in English to the children. He had a foreign accent. His voice may have been slightly slurred or slow. He was wearing a distinctive top on 2 of the occasions. That top you can see here is a burgundy long-sleeve top with a round neck and a white circle on the back, which is rather unusual. 2 of the families also reported that when they came onto the street after the offence, that they could hear the noise of bin men nearby. 3 of the victims said that the man smelt funny, tobacco, aftershave, just smelt not very pleasant. So could that be something of interest to us?
Okay, for now, Andy, thank you very much. You know, it just goes to show it's no matter at all that a lot of time has passed. There are potentially crucial pieces of information still coming to light, still out there all the time. There is still hope of uncovering what has happened to Madeline. Please do call us tonight if you have information. The number is 0500 600 600 if you can help. Now it's over to Martin.
Before we start, an urgent appeal from West Yorkshire Police to trace 31-year-old Anthony Pike in connection with the murder of a man who was shot in Leeds last week. Pike, who has links to Manchester, should not be approached, so if you see him or know where he is, call 999 immediately. Now we start tonight's Wanted Faces with Aidan Harris Bennett. Detectives want to trace him in relation to an incident where a man was shot and paralysed in Birmingham last year. The 22-year-old goes by the nickname AD and has for life, that's the number 4, and the letters LYF tattooed on his left arm. He has links across the Midlands. If you see him, don't approach him, just call 999. Next is convicted killer Derek Passmore. He's wanted after disappearing while on day release from HMP Ford prison in Sussex last June. The 49-year-old was sentenced to life after killing a man in a jealous rage in 1996. Passmore has connections across southeast England, particularly to Maidstone in Kent and southwest London. 3 is Omar Shafi. Police want to trace the 19-year-old in connection with a stabbing at a college in Langley in Berkshire last September. Shafi, who's also known by the nickname Shifty, has links to Slough and to northwest London. He's considered dangerous, so if you know where he is, just call the police. And lastly for now is Michael McCarthy. Now this isn't a great picture, but we do have another which was taken in 2002. Detectives want to speak to him in connection with the sexual assault of a child. The 49-year-old has links to London, Surrey and West Sussex. All the faces are on the website, and you can see them again by pressing your red button. If you know where they are, call and text the numbers on screen. Texts will be charged at your standard message rate. A time for people whose names we don't know now in our CCTV roundup. And we begin with a shockingly violent attack in the Midlands at the start of the year. It's a Saturday evening in January in Smethwick. A jeweller and his nephew have just pulled up outside their house in their silver Vauxhall van. As the jeweller parks, his nephew waits on the driveway. Suddenly the pair are ambushed by a guy in a mask who immediately sprays the younger man in the face with some sort of gas. The attacker is joined by two other men, one of whom has forgotten to pull his mask down. And they set about the victims with crowbars and sticks. It's a vicious and sustained attack which continues for around 3 minutes. The victims are savagely beaten and kicked, and both suffered serious injuries. It only stops when a fourth gang member pulls up in a red Volvo bearing false plates. He gets out and threatens the men with a shotgun, demanding the keys to the van. The gang then drive off in the Volvo and the van, both of which were recovered later by police. These thugs used extreme violence on two unarmed men, and they stole more than £300,000 worth of jewellery. Tell us who they are. A Friday night, also in January, and a small skinny man in a dark jacket walks into a convenience store in St Asaph in North Wales. As he enters the shop, his mate in a blue top stands guard in the doorway. The skinny man, who's carrying a hammer, surprises the female shop assistant and demands she open the till. He grabs handfuls of cash before fleeing. The following Monday, and the thieving pair are at it again, this time at a shop in Kimnall Bay. But they swap roles, with the littler guy taking the lookout's job. His mate walks straight up to the shop assistant and immediately pulls out a lump hammer. He forces the man to the counter and demands he empty the till. He grabs the money and the pair run off. 2 crimes in 4 days, and the police think they may have committed more. They need to be stopped. Names, please. A Sunday evening just before Christmas last year in Sherrard Street in Melton Mowbray. A guy in a distinctive grey hoodie and wearing a beanie hat walks past a convenience store. Seconds later, 3 elderly friends on their way home from church walk into shot coming the other way. And right behind them is the guy in the hoodie. Suddenly he grabs one of the women's handbags, dragging the 75-year-old victim to the floor and into the alleyway. He then scarpered with the bag. A shocking attack on a pensioner. Tell us who this coward is tonight. What a tough guy knocking a 75-year-old lady over. If you need another look, all the CCTV you've just seen is on the website. Call and text the numbers on the screen if you can help.
Well, some pretty brutal tactics used against an elderly woman there, but as Martin has been finding out, there are criminals who are far more subtle when it comes to targeting the elderly.
Don't take my boy in the toilet, please.
We've been there nearly 5 years, and I thought we were really, really safe around here, you know.
Let me come in, I'll get a receipt, I can get you to sign everything, is that alright?
You're petrified that they're going to come back again.
Is that okay if I get a drink, please? Yeah. Thank you very much, sir.
One of the awful facts I learned when I was a policeman is that some criminals will deliberately target older people, seek them out, betray their trust, and steal from their homes. Crime, of course, can have a devastating effect on anyone, but when the victims are the elderly, it's particularly difficult for them to recover. Operation Manhunt, a specialist team of detectives with Hertfordshire Police, deals solely with crimes against older people. They attend on average 20 calls a week.
We've come to a report of a distraction burglary on a 94-year-old female. Unfortunately, she's got very poor eyesight, poor hearing, and actually is walking with a walking frame. And she's been targeted by 2 offenders who had pretended that they were there to deal with a leak and there was a problem with her water. One's kept her distracted by messing around with her taps, while the other one searched the premises. Fortunately for her, a resident has seen this going on, challenged them, and they've made off.
So what's happening in there at the moment then while we're speaking?
Well, obviously our officers attend straight away. Uniformed officers are here, followed by detectives from Manhunt, and then obviously scenes of crime officers, and the inquiries will begin in order to try tracing these offenders straight away. But also we'll do practical measures, like of course at the moment this has just happened. It's contacting the next of kin and making sure that she feels safe now.
Hello, Mrs. Gilbert.
Yes.
Lovely. Sue Foster, Hearts Police.
Victims are often fearful of being targeted again. Civilian officer Sue Foster makes follow-up visits to offer support and give advice on crime prevention.
It's a shock.
Yeah.
To think that they managed to get in there. We've been there, and I just heard this.
Gwen and Jack Gilbert were burgled just a few weeks ago.
And I thought we were really, really safe around here, you know, because we are fairly secure with the security.
The couple were at home watching TV in their lounge when a burglar broke into the bedroom and stole valuables.
The thing that upset me most is this jewellery. They took a gold locket.
That's really difficult to come to terms
Well,
with,
this is it, with the photographs of the children were only tiny in there. But because I don't suppose I'll ever get that back.
Is that the majority of your jewellery that's
It's obvious how the burglary has affected Gwen and Jack.
Right, I'll phone that number to speak to you.
That's my direct number.
Each year, it's estimated there are nearly 800,000 crimes committed against the elderly. Investigators need to use increasingly cunning tactics to catch offenders. 64-year-old Carol was on holiday when her retirement bungalow was broken into.
It had been the first time I'd been burgled, and that's always that, oh gosh, you know, why does that happen to me? You get more and more angry because you're petrified that they're going to come back again because they've realised that perhaps this is an area where it's worth having a go.
But when the same thief who stole from Carol targeted another home, he had no idea he was being watched.
We employ a whole range of tactics, both preventative measures and obviously proactive measures. This particular victim had been subject of a distraction burglary some 12 months before. Manhunt got involved. As you can see here, there's a camera that's been used which has actually caught a distraction burglar in the act.
While the camera recorded the man as he tried to steal from the victim, officers were alerted.
Police were on scene whilst he was still at the address and he was arrested in the act.
Daniel Bolton was jailed for 7 years for 42 offences of burglary, theft and fraud. He's one of an increasing number of criminals who are being caught using hidden cameras.
We are ahead of the game. We're stopping that repeat offending, and it's down to the way that we do put protection in. We currently have reduced distraction burglary by 65% so far this year, and we're averaging a detection rate of 70% of our offences. There is no better feeling than going back telling those victims that we've caught those offenders, and even better when we can return some of the property that they never thought they'd see again. That is massive job satisfaction for the team.
I bet. Well, with me now are 2 people who know all too well how devious the criminals can be when it comes to older people. They are DCI Gareth Davis from Greater Manchester Police and Madeline Baldwin from the Think Jessica charity. Welcome to you both, and first of all to you, Gareth. Tell me about a new and relatively sophisticated crime that is targeting specifically mostly older people.
That's right, we've seen a real spike in this type of criminality recently, and it does target the elderly and the vulnerable, whereby the offenders will ring the victims purporting to be police officers. They will try and obtain from the victims over the telephone their bank account details, PIN numbers, etc., and ultimately they will send a courier around to collect the victims' bank cards and then withdraw thousands of pounds of cash from cash-line machines and use the cards fraudulently.
Right, it's called courier fraud, and they say they're
fraud.
calling these old people because they say your card's been involved in some sort of funny business online, and we want to get to the bottom of that. Well, this scam, as you say, Gareth, it's affecting all sorts of people across the country. We have spoken to one gentleman, he's in his 80s, he's from Essex. He was tricked into handing over his card and an expensive watch.
I am in my 80s now, and therefore it's possibly older people that they are targeting who would be less on their guard. So particularly people in my age group roundabout should be particularly careful. But otherwise it is so sophisticated that almost I think anyone could be taken in.
Gareth, we should be clear here that the tactics these gangs use are pretty sophisticated in this courier fraud. What is it that people should do to try to combat them?
That's right. Quite often they will use a landline at the victim's address and leave the telephone line open whilst the victim moves away from the phone to verify the details they've provided. It's really important that the victim does not use that phone again within a specified time. Certainly leave it 5 minutes before they call back that number that's provided to them. Otherwise they'll be speaking to the offender again.
Yes, it's a bit of a scam where they hold the phone down.
That's right.
You think you're dialing out again, but actually you're just
actually
talking to the same person,
the same number again,
putting on maybe a different accent.
That's right.
Madeline, you set up a charity that helps, again, mostly to do with old people, and it's kind of mail scams that you're interested in. What happened in your case? You did it because your mother was severely targeted.
Yes, she was. I mean, these are postal scams. What happened with my mum, 5 years before she died, she received a letter telling me she'd won a competition, and all she had to do to claim a prize was send a small fee. My mother did this, and as a result of that, her name got put on what's called a suckers list. Now, this list is then circulated to other criminals worldwide, and as a result of that, she got continually targeted. Of course, the family tried to tell her that they were scams, they weren't genuine, but the psychology that the criminals use is so powerful, they actually turned her against the family. A whole cocktail of characters, bankers, solicitors, clairvoyants.
Terrible. But very briefly, what needs to be done here?
Well, through the charity, we've got literature, and we can get that out, and we need the help of police, training standards, and there is a pathway of help, but we need to get the literature out into the homes of the old people, so they don't have to rely on the internet, which a lot of them haven't got.
Yes, a lot of them don't have access to that or don't want to get onto the internet. Just very briefly, these crimes go underreported, do you think, Gareth?
I do, yeah. I feel sometimes the victims are embarrassed to report this crime. I want to say now, if I can, there should be no embarrassment involved with this. Please, anybody who's involved in this type of criminality, victim-wise, please contact the police or action fraud.
Yeah, very cynical, very easy to fall prey.
That's right.
Thank you both very much indeed. If you have been a victim of a scam, you can call your local police force on 101, or you can call Action Fraud on 0300 123 2040. And if you or a relative wants to visit our website, we have a number of related wanted faces that police would like your help with. Over to Matthew.
Now, day release from prison is to be scaled back following a number of serious crimes committed by offenders temporarily out of jail. It comes after 3 serious failures, including the case of Ian McLaughlin, who murdered a man whilst he was on day release. The Ministry of Justice says tighter rules will be introduced about who is eligible for the scheme. Organised criminal gangs are exploiting Britain's rural communities. The warning comes from the Chief Constable of Dyfed-Powys Police, Simon Prince, who says gangs see secluded communities as having minimal police services. He says the focus of UK policing is on urban areas where crime rates are higher, but says the countryside is not immune from the most serious crimes. A convicted mafia boss known as the Professor has won his battle against extradition to Italy. 65-year-old Domenico Rancodore was arrested in London last year after evading Italian authorities for 20 years. The judge had originally decided to extradite him, but changed his mind following a similar case at the High Court last week. Rancodore's lawyers had raised concerns that overcrowding in Italy's prisons would breach his human rights. Finally, this dramatic footage, just released by police, shows a high-speed car chase on Christmas Day. 21-year-old Ashton Della Monica drove for 11 miles through Nottingham at speeds of over 100 miles an hour, driving on the wrong side of the road, passing through 6 red lights. Police had tried to pull him over for driving a stolen car. Eventually, he crashed into a parked vehicle and was arrested. His heavily pregnant girlfriend and baby were in the back of the car. Well, earlier this month, Della Monica was jailed for 22 months.
Right, still to come tonight, the final movements of a hard-working Sheffield man murdered shortly after these pictures were taken. And the hunt for a sex attacker who struck in Cardiff on Halloween.
I won't walk anywhere. I don't know if I'll bump into him.
Are you scared? Huh?
Yes!
Now, 5 years ago, 35-year-old Claudia Lawrence disappeared from her home city of York. No one has seen or heard from her since. Well, tonight, following a review of the case, detectives can now reveal potentially crucial new leads. Well, Detective Superintendent Di Madeline from North Yorkshire Police is in charge of this one. Now, Di, many people will be familiar with Claudia's story. For those people who are not, tell me what you know.
Well, Claudia was last seen on the afternoon of Wednesday, the 18th of March 2009, on her way home from work. We know that evening she took 2 calls from her parents. The following day, she was expected to walk to work to the College of York, where she was a chef, to arrive at 6 a.m. She never arrived, and her father reported her missing then on the 20th of March 2009.
Now, you have new forensics, both from Claudia's house and from her car. Take me through that.
That's right. We've done a full forensic review of her house, and as a result of that, we've got additional fingerprints raised, and we're trying to identify the people from that. And we've also found a cigarette in her car, which has a male DNA profile on it, and we need to identify who that cigarette belongs to.
And you have more to reveal tonight, don't you?
Yes, we're hoping your viewers can help us with a number of items. The first are 2 vehicles we've identified as a result of a CCTV review. Now, the first vehicle is an Astra van. It was picked up on a bus CCTV. We believe it was parked opposite her address about 9 o'clock at night, and that's the last time Claudia was heard from. So we need to identify the owner and user of that van.
Now, that was from a bus. You also have footage of a car. Tell me about that.
That's right. This car was picked up on CCTV on Heworth Road, where Claudia lives. It was about 5:42 a.m. in the morning when she would have been walking to work. Now, that vehicle is believed to be a light hatchback, possibly a Ford Focus, and it brakes unexpectedly, we think, near to her house. What I want to know is why that vehicle did brake, who was in it, and did it stop to give her a lift to work, or has it seen something significant?
You want to trace the drivers, obviously. There are also 2 men you want to identify. Take me through that.
That's right. The first man was seen on Heworth Road during the week leading up to Claudia's disappearance. He's described as a male in his 30s, 5'8" to 5'9", with very tidy brown hair with a fringe. Now, it looked as if he was looking for an address. He was on the phone, and he had a rucksack on his back. He appeared to walk up to a green door, which we thought was Claudia's door, and the lady at the door appeared surprised, but then let the man in.
So that's one man. Tell me about the other.
This could be hugely significant. This is from a witness who says that on the morning of Claudia's disappearance, at 6:45 in the morning, he saw a male described as 55 to 65, with grey hair, mid-length, and he was wearing a 3/4 length sandy-coloured Mac. It's really important we trace that man.
Di, thanks very much. A lot of new information there. Now, Claudia's disappearance attracted a lot of attention at the time, some of it focusing on her lifestyle. Understandably, her sister Ali is still concerned that that stopped people from coming forward.
How she was portrayed in the press at the time as being a manhunter was so unfair and just made me really cross. Because, yeah, she was pretty, she had lots of admirers. It's just how a normal 35-year-old would lead their life. I know that a lot of people came forward at the time, but there are still some people that we want to come forward. Imagine living with not knowing what's happened to a member of your family day in, day out for 5 years. You know, the wondering. We just need to know what's happened to her. We need to find her.
They need to find her. Now, North Yorkshire Police have launched a special website for the investigation where all of this information and more new lines of inquiry can be found. If you can help in any way, please call the numbers on the screen. Kirsty.
Let's go to the Madeline McCann investigation very, very briefly. DCI Andy Redwood's in charge. The calls seem to be coming in.
Yes, we're getting calls in, Kirsty, which is really good. Some good calls about the shirt, which possibly a football shirt. We understand the sensitivity about what we're asking the public for this evening, and so, you know, please call in if you think you've been affected. Even if you've reported it before to police, please come in to us.
You need to hear
evening.
again from
yes,
people. For now, thanks. Let's go to Martin.
Time for some more crooks on camera now, starting with a violent row over a £4 bet on a game of pool at a pub in Sussex. Be warned, this one is very nasty indeed. Inside a pub on Duke Street in St Leonard's in East Sussex late on a Friday night in March last year. 2 men are rowing over a wager following a game of pool. The argument appears to subside as the man in the red top walks off. But while his back is turned, the other man, wearing a black jacket, unscrews the pool cue he's holding. The row starts up again, but things soon escalate as the guy in red turns to speak to another drinker. The man in black takes a step back and then swings the pool cue, hitting the man in the face before punching him. The victim needed 41 stitches and is scarred for life. This violent thug told pubgoers his name was Perry. Can you give us his surname tonight? A man in a black jacket, jeans and a cap uses the rear doors to get on board the number 266 bus on Cricklewood Broadway in North London on a Tuesday evening last November. He doesn't make any attempt to pay, so the driver gets out of his cabin and goes upstairs to speak to him. When he confronts him, the passenger reacts aggressively. He chases the driver back downstairs. The frightened man tries to seek sanctuary in his cab, but just before he makes it, the passenger kicks out at the safety door, which hits the driver in the face, causing a large cut, needing stitches. Make it the end of the line for this bus-travelling bully. Who is he? A Friday afternoon in Brentwood in Essex, also last November. A silver Audi pulls onto the driveway of a private house. 4 masked men, some of whom are armed, walk up to the property, followed a few seconds later by 2 other men who'd stayed in the car. 5 of the men walk straight in and confront the terrified female homeowner, while the other stands guard outside. The men inside demand the woman hands over jewellery, and when she tells them there is none, they rip a necklace and bracelets from her. 2 of the men then rush out to the garage after the woman lies and says the valuables are kept there. One of the gang then forces her out of the house by her hair. She starts to scream, so they drag her back, but on the way she stumbles and falls. The men ignore her and run off back to the car before driving off. These thugs attacked a lone woman in her own home in the middle of the afternoon. They may be masked, but someone knows who they are. Names, please. 2 men walk into an NCP car park in East London on a Tuesday evening last October. But it's not cars, it's cash they're interested in. They head straight for the ticket machines and the shorter guy immediately opens one using a stolen key. The other man, who seems to be having trouble keeping his trousers up, keeps watch. After a few minutes of faffing around, they eventually manage to get at the cash. They try the second machine, but give up and flee, taking more than £1,000 with them. It would be just the ticket if you could tell us who they are tonight. If you could name that pair or anyone else in tonight's CCTV, please get in touch in the usual ways. And of course, all the information is online.
Simon Holdsworth was looking forward to getting married this year. The 36-year-old from Sheffield was working long hours to pay for the wedding that his fiancée, Carleen, had always dreamt of. But just before Christmas, as Simon travelled home from a late shift, he was brutally attacked.
Simon Holdsworth's body was found here in a field in Hackenthorpe on the outskirts of Sheffield on the 17th of December last year. Detectives believe he was attacked from behind with such force that he wouldn't have stood a chance.
He was a very bubbly character. There was never any awkward silences. You were never stuck for anything to say. He'd always have a very calming effect whenever he was around. He was a very warm, caring person, and he enjoyed life.
He always loved doing things with the family, and if we all went out anywhere together, you know, he was always wanting us to get together, and just very family orientated, and he loved his fiancée and the little one. He was a very loving young man in every way.
We were going to get married last year, but because of the wedding that we wanted, we put it off for another year.
On Monday, the 16th of December, Simon left home to go to work. He followed his usual route, through the playing fields near the Rainbow Forge Primary School. Catching the 120 bus on the corner of Delves Road.
We were working really, really hard, but we hardly saw each other, really. Simon would be working sometimes 7 days a week. I'd be working 5 and 6 days a week. Long hours, 12 hours. And just trying to put some money aside, really, and saving up as we went along. I finished work at 7:30 that evening. I got in about 9 o'clock. And Simon phoned me about 9:30 and he says, "How was your day?" And I says, "Oh, it was, you know, hard and I'm really tired." And he says, "Well, try and stay up, because we've not seen each other in a couple of days." He says, "So it'd be nice to see you." I tried to stay up, but by 11 o'clock I was just falling asleep, so I just went to bed.
Simon clocked off work just before 11 o'clock. He then boarded the bus home on Mansfield Road. The journey took about 10 minutes, and Simon got off here, the junction of Burley Spa Lane and Delves Road. About a minute later, Simon walked up Delves Road towards the playing fields.
He always used to go mad, Simon, for me leaving the heating and the lights on. And I says, "I don't care." I says, if I'm in bed asleep, I says, "You need to come home to warmth and light, and you need to be welcomed home."
But Simon never saw the lights. His battered body was found by a passerby at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. He'd been dead for several hours. So, Phil, this is where Simon tragically lost his life. Tell us what you found.
When police officers found Simon the morning afterwards, which was Tuesday the 17th of December, Simon was approximately 10 yards from where we are now. Simon was found on his back, which was a little bit strange because he had a graze to the forehead. That implies that he's gone to the floor in a forward position and either turned over on his own devices, or someone has potentially turned him over. We noticed that a chain that he always wears was missing.
You've got an image of the chain there. What's noticeable about it?
It's a gold chain, it's small linked, and what I do know about this from Simon's perspective, he was never without it. Additionally, his mobile phone had gone. The mobile phone that he carried was a Nokia 201 phone, very similar to this one. Now, this is the same model. That was missing from Simon.
As well as the crucial evidence gathered from the scene, detectives are also poring over hours of CCTV footage. So, Phil, we've seen the scene. We've seen where you found Simon's body. What do you know about his movements before he got to the crime scene?
Yeah, the investigation began by looking from when Simon left his place of work. And what we did is we followed that journey from him getting on the 120 bus and making his way home. We know that he caught the bus just after 11 o'clock, which is just after his shift would have finished, and that's a normal routine for Simon.
The next images you've got are very grainy, because they're taken from some distance, but very, very important images, aren't they?
They're massively important. The view I'm showing you now is taken from Rainbow Forge School, which is on Simon's journey home. What is of interest is that a car appears, and this car appears to be the only car that arrives at that time of night. The vehicle will then do almost a loop on itself and come to a position back on Delves Road, facing up the hill, and park up at the side of the fields where Simon was ultimately found. The next shot I'm going to show you, that circle represents where the gate or the opening is, and we have a figure that goes from left to right from the direction of Delves Road into the playing field. And then 2 minutes later, or just over 2 minutes later, Simon's bus arrives on Burley Spa Lane. We next see another figure entering. There's the figure there going from left to right. I believe that's Simon.
OK, so Simon's in the field. You believe that there's already a figure in the field. What do we see next?
We're now at 11:15 that evening, and our next figure is going from the field back out into the road. And after 2 minutes, what we get is the car that originally parked up leaving Delves Road. It turns right onto Burley Spa Lane and leaves in the opposite direction from which it arrived. That vehicle is of massive significance to this investigation. It's important that I trace who's in that vehicle and what that vehicle is.
Have you got any closer to narrowing it down as to why you think he may well have been murdered?
There are elements of Simon's life that we're only beginning to explore. So my appeal today is for anyone who was in contact with Simon or knew Simon in whatever capacity to come forward. They may hold the bit of this jigsaw that we're missing.
The next morning, the lights were still on, and Carleen decided to go and look for Simon. Within a few minutes' walk of her home, she discovered the crime scene.
I was hoping it wasn't him. I was really hoping it wasn't him. Just kept thinking, you know, while I was asleep, he was laid on the field.
So many people love him and have so many nice things to say about him, but there's one person that's done this and my heart's truly broken. I've got a big hole inside of me that will never heal. And I don't want it to happen to anybody else. I'll do anything not to let it happen to anybody else.
Well, that poor family. The detectives leading that case are here tonight and they are ready for your call.
Some updates now on previous cases, starting with an appeal from January when a young woman living in a caravan in Lanarkshire in Scotland was the victim of a sexual assault and an armed robbery. Well, following the appeal, police arrested a 46-year-old man. He was remanded in custody and will appear in court this Friday.
Well, next, a reminder of the heartbreaking murder of 19-year-old Joseph Burke-Monerville. He was shot as he sat in a car with his two brothers, one of whom was his identical twin. It happened in Hackney in London last year. The murder, which detectives think was a case of mistaken identity, was captured on a nearby CCTV camera. Well, it's a year since Joseph's death. There is now a £30,000 reward for information that leads to a conviction. If you can help, call the Instant Room, please, on 0208 345 3985, or you can speak anonymously to Crime Stoppers.
Now, last month also saw the anniversary of another case we featured. 24-year-old aspiring teacher Sam Guidera died after being stabbed outside Penge East Station in southeast London on February the 12th, 3 years ago. Detectives have been re-examining the CCTV and they're particularly keen to trace these two men who were seen in the area just before Sam was attacked, as they may have vital information. Well, the lead detective is here in the studio tonight, or you can speak to the incident room on 0208 345 3734. There remains a £20,000 reward for information leading to the conviction of those responsible for Sam's death.
Next, the latest on 31-year-old father of two, John Kennedy, who died as he was stabbed in the Railway Arms pub in Wapping in East London in February of 1997. Well, just days after our appeal, this handwritten note, which claimed the author had information about John's murder, was dropped into St George's Town Hall on Cable Street, close to where the murder happened. Police are urging the person who wrote that note to please get in touch. The lead detective can be contacted directly on his personal mobile number now. The number is 07785 555 969. There is a 20 grand reward in this case.
Now, a case we featured several times on the programme. 25-year-old Melanie Hall went missing after a night out at Cadillac's nightclub in Bath in June 1996. Her remains were discovered in undergrowth by the side of a motorway slip road in Gloucestershire 4 years ago. Her body had been tied with rope and wrapped in black plastic bin liners. Well, tonight, officers need to trace anyone who may have owned or used, however briefly, a white VW Golf GTI. The registration number is C752CYE between April and August of 1996. Now, police are particularly keen to speak to anyone using that car with connections at the time to Cardiff and with Pentwyn, those areas in particular. Please call the incident room on 01179 455 808.
And finally, news of an arrest in a case that we featured in September. 7-year-old Nikki Allen was murdered in Northumbria in 1992. Her badly beaten body was discovered in a derelict building close to her Sunderland home the day after she disappeared. Well, at the end of this February, a 43-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of Nikki's murder. He is currently on bail. We will update you on that case when we can.
We start the remainder of our Wanted Faces with Dean Smart. Police want to speak to him about a violent robbery in Devon last August, during which the victim was attacked with a hammer and an axe. 27-year-old Smart, who has links to Bath, Bristol, Blackpool and Liverpool, should not be approached. Just call 999. 6 and 7 are Daniel Patterson and Zebediah Rose, who's also known as Jason Walker. Detectives want to trace them in connection with an incident in 2009 when a man was kidnapped at gunpoint, taken from Suffolk to a flat in London and held captive. Patterson, who is 27, has links to Streatham in London, and Rose, who's 28, has connections to Brixton in South London. They're both considered to be extremely dangerous. And finally tonight is John Fletcher. But he likes to use a lot of other names, including Martin Donald and Jay Hudson. Police think he's in his late 30s or early 40s and want to speak to him about dozens of offences where property has been stolen from gym and leisure centre lockers. Fletcher has a 1-inch scar across his left eyebrow, a 2-inch scar on his right forearm and the name Nicola tattooed on his chest. Call and text on the usual numbers if you recognise any of tonight's faces. They're all online and you can have another look by pressing the red button on your remote.
Now, back in October, a group of friends was out celebrating Halloween at a nightclub in Cardiff. But the night ended with an horrific sexual assault on a teenager as she walked home. We have some particularly clear CCTV of the suspect to show you in just a minute. But first, here's what happened.
I haven't really known how to deal with it. I've been trying to not think about it, which hasn't helped at all.
Help! 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 Come on, help! Help! Help me, please. Help!
It's affected most things, like, I won't walk anywhere. I don't know if I'll bump into him. I don't know. My temper. I've got a hell of a temper on me now. We were having a sort of a house party at first and then going out later in the night. It was fancy dress because it was Halloween and it was my boyfriend's birthday. I was going as a schoolgirl, so mine was pretty straightforward. Just a skirt and a blouse and then some blood on my face.
Are you ready, yeah?
Yes, I'm just putting my wig on 1 second. Okay,
Well, guys, taxi's here. You look really good.
Yeah. Come on then, let's go. Oh, hang on, hat.
Everyone looked really good when they came round.
Okay.
It was really fun. Everyone made an effort. I didn't think they would all make an effort, but they did. When we went inside, everyone sort of, wandered off doing their own thing. I hadn't seen my boyfriend for quite a while. So I just went down the stairs to have a look for him outside. And I ended up by myself. And they wouldn't let me back in. So I was on my own. I got my phone out, which had died just before I went outside because I'd been using it all night, taking pictures and stuff. So I couldn't get hold of anyone. and I didn't have enough money to get a taxi by myself. I wasn't waiting outside dressed the way I was, so I walked up to the top of Mill Lane and turned down by the side of John Lewis. I felt reasonably safe because I knew the routes and I knew where I was going. I walked down the Taff embankment right to the end, and I come out on a main road, but you have to come out on a zebra crossing. And there was this guy in front of me then. I didn't think anything of it at first, so I just sort of carried on walking, and then he just stopped.
You okay?
Yes, thanks.
I don't like people walking behind me anyway. I just stopped and made a point of dropping my stuff on the floor. So it wasn't too obvious, but I wanted him to walk past me so I could see where he was going and what he was doing. I climbed over this wall and I heard something behind me, and he'd walked out from behind another wall. I got really scared at this point that he'd waited and hid. I was sort of panicking a bit, and I didn't know what to do. He walked past me again and carried on walking up towards the apartment. He sort of looked like he turned right, and then he was gone.
Got a cigarette? Local?
No, I'm not from around here. Are you local?
Canton.
What are you doing here?
You scared? Huh?
Yes.
Are you scared? Huh?
If he's done it to me, he could do it to somebody else. He just thinks that he's got away with it now, you know?
Help, I need help.
I'm just angry that he's completely fine. And he's pretty much ruined everything for me at the moment.
Bye-bye.
Well, Detective Inspector Mark Lewis is here. Really, this is a chilling case. Tell me what you know about the attacker.
Yeah, we've got some good CCTV images of the attacker before the attack and just after the attack. At 1:26 a.m. he's seen going towards the scene and 2:10 coming away. He's described as male, Asian appearance. He's got a broken Indian type accent, average build. He's got dark hair, dark stubble. He's also wearing a dark jacket and dark trousers. In the latter image he's seen quite clearly with a dark tattoo on his left forearm.
That's pretty distinctive, isn't it? What about what he said to this young woman? That's important.
Yes, it is. He mentioned that he was from the Canton area of Cardiff, which is a suburb just on the outskirts. That may well be true, but obviously we've got keeping an open mind on that.
Mark, there is also a specific witness that you'd like to trace. Tell us about this guy.
Yeah, just before the attack, the victim was spoken to by a passing cyclist who quite kindly offered her his jacket. That's somebody we're keen to trace tonight.
Yes, he's just he's an innocent bystander, but somebody who's part of an important jigsaw.
Yes.
Thanks very much. So somebody must surely recognise that man that we saw there on CCTV. Clear pictures. If you do, then please get in touch. 0500 600 600. And, of course, if you've been a victim of crime, there is the victim support line. Let me give you their number. It's 0845 30 30 900.
Some more updates now, starting with the images of 57 people West Midlands police wanted to trace on suspicion of disorder at an English Defence League protest in Birmingham last July. Well, since our appeal in the last programme, 33 people have been identified and charged. We will, of course, keep you updated with developments, and there are still some people police want to trace who you can see on the website.
And an excellent result on some CCTV that we showed you back in 2010. There had been a string of thefts from golf clubs across the country, and we asked for your help in identifying the pair responsible. Well, after an investigation by the National Crime Agency into another matter entirely, the two were actually identified as 43-year-old Daniel Lloyd and 26-year-old Joe McCaughey. It's estimated that the pair stole golf equipment worth, wait for it, more than £750,000 from at least 60 golf clubs. Lloyd was sentenced to 5 years and McCaughey to 3 years.
And finally, police needed your help to locate 23-year-old Abdi Karsh, who was wanted for raping a woman in London in 2010. Well, thanks to Crimewatch viewers, Karsh was tracked down to Denmark. He was extradited in November, and earlier this month he pleaded guilty to rape. He'll be sentenced next month. It just goes to show your calls really do make a difference.
Well, following our Madeline McCann update, we've had lots of calls, texts and emails from people holidaying in the area, which will be followed up very carefully indeed by the investigating team. Now, onto our CCTV. You remember the third one we showed you, that shocking footage of the elderly lady being robbed in Melton Mowbray. We've had lots of calls about that one. Several names have been given. One name which keeps cropping up again and again. Please do keep those calls coming in. They are absolutely vital, and detectives here will be onto them straight away.
Right, that's just about everything for now, but remember, all of tonight's appeals stay on our website, and the wanted faces, well, they stay on the red button until midnight tonight. The phone lines are going to be open until midnight tomorrow night, and of course we're going to be back again tonight just after the news. But for now, from everyone here on the team, thanks as ever for your calls. Keep trying if you can't get through.